So if someone coming from Java C# background to TypeScript, one of the challenge is to understand the use of interface. Um, it's not purely because of they're unfamiliar with the interfaces, uh, but how it's being used in TypeScript. I would say how it's been widely used in TypeScript. Now, in TypeScript, most of the time we see this kind of use of interfaces, where we use interfaces as a way of defining the shape of data. And as you can see in this code, we have payment interface defined, and we are passing an object of payment to the process function, and we kind of show that there's a processing of that payment, which is kind of a common existing JavaScript um, application. We are moving to TypeScript. Mostly we would see like modules with loads of functions, and then we're taking parameters objects, and we're returning some object, mostly with a result. So the challenge as a JS engineers we face is how we can have some assurance about the shape of this object at compile time before we are facing the surprise at runtime. So that's basically the widely used case. So first thing, when you jump to TypeScript, what we are trying to do is get the shape in place, and for that the best available tool is using interface. Now, this is perfectly fine if you have good background about JavaScript and if you already seen the challenges. But for Java C# programmer who got more knowledge on object-oriented world, dealing with the classes, they might be feel a bit unfamiliar because we are not dealing with the behaviors as we do in most of the time in the Java C# applications. Now, if we move to the next example, now, this example will be more familiar for the eyes of a programmer in Java or C#. Now, in this interface, we are defining a behavior, and then we use that process, that payment process behavior in our classes by implementing PayPal processor, Stripe processor, and we kind of use those good patterns like for patterns or program for interface or open close principles. So those all familiar patterns are coming to light when we use the interfaces with behavior. Now the key point is these features are available in TypeScript. So if you're coming from Java C#, more strong background, then probably if you start with the documentation about the classes, it would be easy into the TypeScript world, because you will realize there's not much loss in this TypeScript, or there's much thing you can reuse rather than kind of being struggle with the other parts of the TypeScript. Now, once you get that familiarity, then you can easily get the transition for the other areas. So it's perfectly fine use interfaces in object-oriented way. The only reason we see most of the time interfaces in defining the object shape, because that's mainly the main entry point for most of the existing JavaScript applications. But if you're using a new application, it's perfectly fine. Start with the classes. It gives you better abstraction, and also you can reuse most of the knowledge you have, and at least you will get familiar of using TypeScript, and then you can go into the details and get into the more detailed parts, like how is the optional parameters, how is the read-only parameters, and kind of thing in the around the interfaces. Now, this is the next one is the official documentation example. We have the pingable example. Should be very familiar for ISA as well. If you're coming from more of a object-oriented, everything is a class kind of a background. So here you can see TypeScript is doing the validation and let us know that something is not right, that we need to have the right implementation or being adhere to the contract of pinball. So as we know in the TypeScript, everything is transcompiled JavaScript. So you might not have everything that you have in the Java C# in the runtime. If you see these transcompiled version of JavaScript, you won't see the interfaces. It's just pure classes. and also just having the objects. So this is a kind of the world of the JavaScript runtime. So as any tool, TypeScript is trying to address set of challenges. TypeScript is not trying to create a new runtime, it's trying to help JavaScript developers to have better, more robust code, so have more feedback in the compile time, and that's been given by using these interfaces and other kind of constructs. So yeah, so if you're coming from the Java or C# background, I would suggest you to start from the classes documentation so you have that familiarity, and anything that you had in the world of the C# or Java where you had the grammar for patterns and other patterns, everything is already there and you can use, with the subtle differences when you come to the syntax here and there, but pretty much all your abstractions, the decomposition techniques you used in the Java and C# still you can reuse in TypeScript.